Hello and welcome to A Piece of String, the show that brings together comedians and scientific minds to ask and maybe answer the biggest of all questions ever. I'm Matthew Shrubman. I'm a chemist and biophysicist by training, and with me today are Josie Peters, an astrophysicist.
Hello there.
Sophie Ward, a biomedic and neuroscientist.
Hello.
And James Wells, an engineer.
Ahoy.
Each of us will ask a question to which one of us secretly knows the answer, and points will be allocated on a tyro arbitrary basis by our producer, Sam Lee. The winner will get this freshly sharpened, 2/3 used pencil that I'm holding in my hand. James, what's your question for us today?
What is the most selfish of all creatures?
Is it one of us? Let's hope not. That wouldn't be nice, would it?
Is it the shellfish?
James, you've asked. Why have you asked this question?
Mainly because I'm concerned.
Tell us, James.
I'm concerned with our appearance as a podcast group, and I want to ensure that I've got no idea. No idea what this is. Why do animals suddenly become selfish?
Is there a depletion in supplies?
Almost all animals are selfish.
Yeah,
Everything alive is selfish.
Yeah.
So everything alive is selfish, fundamentally speaking. And it's weird, like a lot of the time you can, we always think of selfishness as a negative thing, but I think often you can kind of forgive humans for being selfish because often, it's just completely understandable, right?
I guess so. Like people's focus is their own life, and so they just want to keep themselves ticking over and going.
It's just someone did something a little bit nasty to me quite recently, and I was just like, yeah, it's understandable because they've just been selfish. I mean, it wasn't great for me.
How could you, James?
Tit for tat, mate. Tit for tat. But seriously, that is the best method. So, like, if you were, in terms of game theory, you have a group of people, you ought to use the method of tit for tat. And there's actually, you can look up how often you should be betrayed before you hurt someone back. It's quite an interesting thing. So you give some grace, when they're graceful. But the absolute, you're always going to benefit if you cheat often. So what is the idea there? Well, if you've got loads of people cheating everyone, then everyone sort of loses. And you get a few winners, but all the nice people die out. But the tit for tat people, if they club together, because they keep reinforcing each other's, they beat the selfish people. So tit for tat's the method, mate.
It's so selfish that we've immediately started talking about humans, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. We're self-obsessed, like humans just are. And it's like, is there such thing as a selfless act? Because you always get that little feeling of gratitude of being a good person. Humans are so self-obsessed, like even the very fact that we can, we think of reality as things that we see, and everything is just so human-driven.
Well,
I think we might be the most selfish animals, guys.
Easily, we're destroying the planet and we don't care.
Yeah.
Some of us care.
Some of us care. But
Not me. Lies. James, are bees selfish?
Well, they sting you, don't they? But they sacrifice their lives to do so. That's not very selfish, is it?
It's not, is it?
But it is a sort of a kamikaze mission, in a way.
No, I mean, I don't think bees are very selfish because not on an individual basis. Because you need to think of bees as like the whole colony of bees, or what do you call it? Hive? The whole hive of bees is selfish as a group, I guess. But on an individual basis, they're very likely to just kamikaze themselves or do things that are highly dangerous because it's for the good of the colony.
In that same realm, ants must be very not selfish because they do a very similar thing, don't they? Work as a whole colony.
There is some selfishness inside ant colonies, though, that I've only just found out about. Like queens fighting one another for dominance. I mean, I knew that there was a little bit of that going on, but I didn't realize to what extent the body, I'm relating it to a body because it is sort of like a larger living body. But if there's something damaged about one of the queens, then the other ants will kind of plot a coup to get that queen killed.
is that selfish though? Because is that like for the benefit of the entire colony? Does that then count as...
Well, then the queen, the outgoing queen, might work out that there's some kind of coup going on and try and find and kill the new queens that the other ants are breeding, and that's quite a selfish thing for her to do. But ultimately, normally the other ants get the upper hand and manage to replace her with a newer, stronger queen. Also, interesting point inside that is that when these queens battle one another for dominance, they actually make battle cries, which you can hear if you're close enough to the ant's nest.
As we often are.
As we often are.
frame of reference, right? Frame of reference. So within a frame of reference, you could be selfish or not selfish, depending on who you're benefiting or who you're hurting, right?
Yeah.
So like something selfish for us would be to wail loads. But if you were to provide that meat for starving people, then it's
kill
like
whales.
selfish, but it's
Kill
not
whales.
selfish.
I thought you meant wailing. I thought you meant like depraving them of their like.
Is that a yodel?
I think I find that was me wailing. You'd be depriving people of their auditory silence. That's a selfish thing to do in their peace and quiet.
I think even selflessness comes from a selfish root. So they've done these experiments with rats where they'll show that when they're play fighting, the stronger rat will always let the weaker rat win about a third of the time. A kind of selfless act, just because then that rat will keep playing with them, and then they don't get socially excluded from one another. So a lot of this kind of selfless stuff that we interpret in a social way all has selfish roots in terms of keeping us socially successful.
Komodo dragons nick other people's nests, and there's a particular bird on the Komodo island that are always in pairs their entire lives, and then when one dies, the other dies within a month because it just doesn't know what to do with itself. Really, really sad. But they build these incredible nests, these little birds, are massive, sort of 3 or 4 meters wide, big mounds, and then the Komodos come along and just kick them out and then just use that nest. Absolutely amazing.
On that topic of nests, then cuckoos may be one of the most selfish cuckoo birds, right? Because they just always lay their eggs in another bird's nest, and then the cuckoo gets raised.
Cuckoos.
It's awful.
But it's horrific how when the cuckoo chicks hatch, their
enormous.
first instinct is to kick all of the other birds out of the nest, or they kick all the eggs. They just throw everything else out.
I think it's so
Unbelievable.
sad, and then you see the parent like desperately trying to feed this little baby that it doesn't get, isn't theirs, even though this is this kind of gargantuan mess of a thing.
Yeah, I
Distressed.
don't like them either. Do we have to keep cuckoo birds? Can we send them somewhere else?
That's why we try and trap them in clocks, don't we?
Yeah, early policy that has not kept up with the cuckoo population.
So does anyone actually have an answer for this?
Yes, sort of. Originally I was thinking bacteria, be it that they are, they're always just kind of lone legends, right? They just go around doing their own selfish stuff. They're fundamentally a parasite. They get inside your body. They eat all your good stuff. They pump out loads of horrible stuff. They make you feel really ill. And I didn't think they would ever work together. But actually, it turns out that even bacteria show altruism in times of stress. So like some, if they're all living close together, some of them will actually self-destruct if they detect that they're infected with a virus, so that they stop being a factory for the virus to protect the other bacteria around them. There's also evidence of stronger ones pumping out a chemical called indole, which is absorbed by the weaker ones and helps them to secrete or to release their own antibiotics designed to fend off bacteria of another kind of species coming to attack them. All the way down to bacteria, we can see that even they have this kind of social aspect to their behavior. So, but yeah, I mean, I was trying to look at parasites in general, because parasites do seem quite selfish, right? And there's obviously that classic parasite, Toxoplasma gondii. Have you guys heard of this?
Oh yeah, no.
No? Oh, okay, so Toxoplasma gondii is this really cool one that it's to do with the life cycle of cats. It can only breed in the intestines of cats, but ultimately the parasite ends up being pooed out by the cats, and then somehow is taken on by like rats and other rodents. And when they get the parasite, it somehow affects their neurology such that they become a lot more fearless, and they're also slightly like the smell of cat urine. And so they're more likely to hang out where cats have been, and then more likely to get eaten again, and then get back into the intestine of the cat where the parasite can breed. We've recently found that humans have a huge proportion of the human race are infected with Toxoplasma gondii as well. And there is a very small amount of evidence. It's not fully confirmed yet, and there's still a lot of science to be done. There's a very small amount of evidence that humans also are less averse to risk when they've got Toxoplasma gondii in them. So there was a study in the Czech Republic that showed that people with it were something like 10 times more likely to have a car accident.
10 times.
I thought it was pretty cool. And there's also a rumor, and this is I do not know if this is true, but I've heard this from a couple of different sources, that the Japanese government were encouraging women to go to cat cafes so that they became more likely to accept risks or sleep with men in order to increase the population, since they have such an aging population. Not really sure about that one. But
How would you pick it up from a cat if you sort of stroke the cat and then like licked your fingers or something? How do you?
As we all
yeah,
do.
exactly. Yeah, as we do.
Or just lick the cat.
If you mistake the cat litter for your Cheerios.
Yeah, but ultimately, I think selfishness is something which is completely inbuilt because things need to be selfish in order to survive. But also, it's a big mistake that people make that survival of the fittest means survival of the fittest individual. Across all kinds of different living things, it's extremely clear that survival of the fittest really means survival of the fittest plural, i.e. survival of the fittest group that works together the best. That's so often the case. And so selflessness is also incredibly built into the system of life because things need to be selfless in order to work in groups. But since I thought you might be hungry for a conclusion, I just thought I'd slap on it that looking at an interspecies level, almost certainly, or in fact, yeah, almost definitely, the most selfish species is humans because we've killed off so many other animals in order to make room for ourselves.
Boo.
Josie, what's your question for us?
My question is, can a leopard change its spots?
I'm sure past puberty they'll clear right up.
This is something you hear about a
You
lot,
missed
right?
all of our facial expressions there.
If you dye its fur, that'd change its spots.
But it
Can
has
it
to
do
do
it?
it, right? Itself. So it has to
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
self-dye kit with sort of paw-friendly
I was going to say, is
packaging.
Pause for the pause.
Paw packaging.
I do know that one cool thing about leopards with the lines underneath their eyes, though.
what?
Is
What
that
happens?
leopards? They have like black lines underneath their eyes, which somehow act as sunglasses.
What?
Oh,
I think that's how it works. Is that the sun? They don't get any glare because that area of their face like absorbs all the light. So
does that also work in humans? Like if you wear a lot of black eyeliner, are you a bit less glare for me?
exactly, that's how that behavior actually evolved in human society, I believe.
Give it a go when the sun comes out.
So this question is a bit about camouflage, right? Mimic octopuses. Octopuses or octopi?
Octopodes.
Oh, yeah.
Octopodes.
Is that what it is?
It is actually octopuses. I found this out because I put up a little video. In fact, did you watch my video, Josie?
No,
about
I didn't.
about octopuses.
Didn't watch the video. I was saying that I discussed this in my maths class with my friend Sophie. Not this one. Different
Sorry,
Sophie.
what?
We then started talking about Pythagoras and whether what would you call multiple Pythagorases? Would it be like octopuses or would it be like Pythagorasi or that dealio?
Yeah, so mimic octopus, obviously great at its camouflage. But I mean, I don't really know much about how it does the camouflage thing. I know that it can, almost completely blend in with its surroundings, so it's almost completely invisible. But what I do know about mimic octopuses is that they are just like early humans. They are hunter-gatherers. The way that they behave is they hunt and they roam around, they gather things. It's pretty cool.
On the octopus front, did everyone watch Blue Planet 2? There was an octopus that could pick up loads of shells with its suckers and could camouflage itself that way, which is pretty cool.
I've heard about with octopuses and camouflage that there's some research going into using, so I don't know the exact details, but octopuses have some sort of changeable cells that can change kind of the colours of them. And so they're thinking of using that style of camouflage in like army camouflage, so that then rather than having the classic, green, brown, black blobs, we actually have this dynamic, changeable wear, which I think would be cool. And I love those moments when when we look to the natural world and are like, that's really cool. I'm going to use that for humans, like geckos. Like, we're going to find how to climb walls using gecko pads for inspiration.
Also on the subject of biomimicry, there's a bioengineer at Oxford who has figured out that actually flippers on the back of boats are more efficient than propellers by about 10 or so %. So eventually maybe all the boats, crossing the old Atlantic, be like flipping their way.
Flippity flip flip.
Always look to the natural world. See, then that makes me think maybe would we be better if we had spots? If we had some form of camouflage? But I guess now in cityscapes, what kind of camouflage would we have? Like those people who paint themselves to a wall and then stand in the wall and then jump out at people for banter.
Oh yeah, like the Hunger Games.
What?
Do you do
Oh yeah, like Peter. Yeah.
Do you do that quite often, Sophie?
I'm not Sophie. I'm a wall.
What? I heard one other cool biomimicry thing, which was to do with, was it the bullet train in Japan? The like really, really fast train.
The Shinkansen.
Is that what it is? Cool. So yeah, when it started or something, it was really a bit wobbly and like people felt a bit sick, and it was something to do with the airflow over the front of the train. And then one of the engineers was sat having his lunch by a pond and saw, I think it was a kingfisher diving to catch some food, and noticed that there were basically no ripples surrounding the kingfisher, and thought, wow, but so like fluid dynamics in the water are the same as how it works in the air too. And looked at the design of the kingfisher's bill and then put that on front of the train, solve the train problem. Smooth and smooth.
That's super cool.
Amazing.
So can a leopard change its spots?
A leopard can change its spots, actually. So
What?
yeah, so leopards have kind of 2 stages to their spot life. They have their baby spots, and then they grow up and they have their adult spots. And it's actually been mathematically modelled, like how leopard spots developed, by good old Alan Turing. So when he wasn't busy sorting out World War II code breaking, he was like, you know what, I want to work out an equation that will explain how chemical reactions could lead to animal spots, stripes and patterns. So he did, and he worked out that there's probably 2 chemicals, and he called them morphogens, that kind of the leopard releases from its skin. And these morphogens, different morphogens, interact differently to give spot patterns. So there's a set of morphogens that are released when it's a baby and it gets some spots. And then as it gets older, there's this second wave of morphogens. And that means that it gets kind of stronger, clearer spot patterns. So actually, all leopards do change their spots.
Can you, if you give these morphogens to a leopard, can you get it to change it when it's already changed?
Well, so the thing is that these morphogens, they're still like a mathematical theory thing. So we haven't actually seen a physical manifestation of a chemical that we've taken out of a leopard and been like, oh, let me dip that onto something. And also diffusion, we need to consider about the diffusion of the morphogen. Like it's going to be moving through cells, and cells have lots of different bits. So there's a lot to consider. And yeah, there's a lot more to be discovered, really.
Wow.
If you wanted to get a black circle, there would be probably from a middle point a morphogen that was black but triggered pale. So as it moved out, it triggered pale, and then when it settled as black. So that's why you get black circle.
Genius.
Maybe that's why I get dark rings under my eyes every morning. And now for the mystery midsection. Just before we started the show, I gave everyone the following question.
Geologists have recently found further evidence for a new continent. But where is it? And what is it called?
I then asked everyone to write down a fictional but reasonable sounding answer. I will now read out all of those answers with the real answer mixed in. Everyone will then get the chance to decide which answer they think is correct. The new continent is 93% submerged and includes New Zealand. It's called Zealandia. The plate upon which San Francisco sits is completely geologically independent of North America and is called Ruthenia. It's in your later life and it's called Incontinent. The new continent is off the coast of Hawaii and has been formed by steady lava flow from shield volcanoes. It is called Pele, Hawaiian for lava. The new continent is in between India and Italy. It is called Indali. What do we think, legends? Quite the selection there.
These all sound true.
So incontinence isn't a landmass.
That is true, and I did say geologists had discovered it, and they do study rocks. But you do get rocks. Can you get bladder rocks like gallstones?
Yeah. Who's to say the geologists weren't just having an interesting day when they were looking at something else?
So this new continent in inverted commas between Italy and India.
Just picture that in your
I
brain.
think that's already been discovered.
What is
I
it?
think we got that one.
It's Indali, Josie. It's Indali.
Oh, exactly. It's already there, isn't it?
I think we got that one.
What do you reckon, James? You have a little chuckle.
what do you
Lay your cards on the table. What are you thinking?
Lay my cards on the table. Incontinent. Zealandia. I mean, Hawaii.
There's some real intense
Matt, what
staring
do you
going on
think?
between James and Matt.
JC, what do you think?
Matt, what do you think?
I think it might be the San Francisco one. Or Indley, I think that's plausible.
So which one of those? Which you
Yeah, I'll go for the San Francisco one. Ravania sounds fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking that one. I think because Pele, I was thinking of something exactly like Pele when I was trying to come up with a convincing false answer because it sounds like the kind of thing it should be.
A football player.
But yeah, I don't think it's Pele. I'm actually going to go for Zealandia.
James.
I'm going to go for California.
You will all, except from one of you, be gutted to hear that Matthew Shribman has won in every regard. He got the right answer, and you two guessed his answer.
Why?
Stop giving him more power. Seriously.
I was convinced that, like, when the Hawaii one came up, he had this shifty look on his face. I was like, that's definitely
That was
his
mine,
one.
and I thought someone might go for
I
it.
thought it was
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good.
I only didn't go for it because I thought it was his.
Damn it. No, the correct answer is Zealandia. So basically, it's a new continent. It's a submerged mass of continental crust that sank away after breaking off from Australia many years ago. It's 93% submerged. And the recent evidence is geological, that it is very separate in its rock, kind of what it contains rock-wise. So, yeah, it's essentially a bit like Atlantis, but New Zealand is the visible part. The rest is underwater.
So can so I'm the Indley person. What is the real continent that's between them both?
Well, like you've
It's
got
like quite a lot of the Middle East.
You've got the Middle East, mate. Yeah. Well, the subcontinent is like
sort of
Arabia and
Northeast Africa.
Iran and stuff.
Josie, for sure.
Really? Look, geography is
Asia Minor, it's called.
geography is my weak point. All right, and I'm gonna reveal that weakness to you all.
It's very vulnerable of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Josie.
Appreciate that.
I like the idea of Indley.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell
go on.
that to the kids as a way of saying, you think everything's been discovered? Think again. Right under our noses.
Okay, everyone, I've got a little question. What is the most effective way to relax?
Oh,
You sounded relaxed as you asked that.
I am relaxed.
It's your method.
meditation.
Yeah, what are you doing? Reveal it.
I am currently
Under the table.
massaging my own thighs,
Nice.
like very vigorously.
Is it just?
That's why
is
I'm
it just
gently
you?
vibrating. And there's actually 3 hands massaging my thighs. Wait, who's the?
That's strange, isn't it?
James's hands are in the air. Josie's hands are in the air. Sophie's hands are in the air.
But where are
Producer Sam
Sam's?
Lee.
So
Welcome to Piece of String After Dark.
I love that, like Hollyoaks after dark. Yeah,
So it's not that easy. I mean, we live in a quite a fast-paced society. And is there a fast-paced way to relax? Fit it in quickly. Have a 2-minute relax, and that's enough. Can we do that?
More stressed than ever, aren't we? Well, some people do like 3-minute meditation, don't they? You can get emergency meditation where you just do a bit of breathing and remember your body's there.
Does it work though? Yeah. Where did I leave it? I think that it's funny because I think a lot of that is about just resetting yourself and putting yourself in a different state of mind. But I wonder if there's an actual scientifically required time that you need in order to, I don't know, reset. Not that that's a very scientific phrase. What about eat something you can eat or drink? Like chamomile. That's relaxing, isn't it? Or
You can get
lavender helps you
special
sleep.
nighttime teas, can't you?
What's the most relaxing position to be in?
Lie down.
Floating. I quite like floating in the sea.
Floating, yeah.
No, stressful. I find that very stressful because I'm not a very strong swimmer.
What about in the Dead Sea? Have you ever been in that?
No, I'd really like to, but the fact,
It's then you just like bobbing on the surface. I had a little whistle stop tour. I got myself 10 minutes in the Dead Sea. It was very late for the flight.
And the reason you float in the Dead Sea is,
Well, Sophie.
well, it's because the water is more dense than you, right? Because of the amount of salt in the water.
Salty
so
AF, yeah.
salty that you end up floating. But then isn't it a risk that you can just float away? What are those like isolation chamber things you can lie in they're like visual sensory chambers?
Doesn't sound very relaxing.
No, you lie in like in like
You're talking about the ones where you float.
yeah.
Yeah,
you
okay.
float
I
and
did
then-
this once
and
with a
then
friend.
They try and make it the same What is it they do?
It's horrendous.
Is it not
It's
nice?
Absolutely horrendous.
They say it's
like
really
we got
relaxing.
a half price deal to go with a friend. And I was like, oh yeah, mate, do you want to come and
Too good
go
to
to
be
this
true.
go to the flotation center? And he was like, yeah, sure. So we went, and you get your kit off, and you get in this little pod, and it's full of brine, and you just float around in there, and it's dark, and it's just like these noises that are supposed to make you relax, but ultimately the roof comes down, and you're just stuck in this pod, and it's and if you get even the tiniest bit of this brine in your eyes, it's so painful, and then you're just like scrambling around for like, get me out of this pod, like trying to find the buttons to escape. But basically, people do it because it's one of these like pseudo health things where people think that it's really good for them to go and float in in brine. It's probably just because it makes them feel so different. And the reason it makes you feel so different is it's just so dehydrating to be in brine all the time. And it's just like sucking moisture out of all of your sweat glands constantly. You just feel horrendous after it. I've never felt worse after any kind of like pseudo therapy. Not that I do many pseudo therapies.
How long were you in there for?
I was there for like an hour.
An hour?
Oh my
Yeah, you
God.
just float around listening to whale noises, thinking like, why have I spent any money?
You didn't find the escape button at all?
I found the escape button multiple times because I needed it many times. But I always got back in there. You know, I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to float.
I understand.
Is it one pod per person?
1 pod per person.
Oh,
yeah.
so you're not like shimmying up with some rando in a pod.
Do you have to put on a wetsuit or something? What do you wear?
No, it's just in the nudo.
In the nude?
Yep.
Do they wash the brine? What happens for the next person?
Brine doesn't need washing. Nothing. I don't think there's any extremophile bacteria that can survive in absolute brine, is there?
Good point.
Absolute
point.
brine.
That's why found some water on Mars recently, but it was super, super salty. So everyone was like, oh, well, there's some water, but it's really salty, so there's no hope.
They found some mineable ice, didn't they, on Mars? They found some like ice that we could potentially mine. So when
Yeah,
we're
there
living there, it's like got some.
There are some ice
to do.
caps, but they also found the moon has icy caps as well.
So I think the most relaxing position is one where your body is completely supported, like lying down, but maybe not in brine.
Do you guys find it really relaxing when you're like lying down and someone just kind of picks you up and then just like drops you again onto like a
Depends
soft
on
surface?
to what, yeah, soft surface.
I just find that so relaxing. If someone was like pick up like your limb, just like whoop, like flop onto. Love that. Some people find it relaxing to do quite vigorous things. Go for a run, right? Because you got to relax your body and you got to relax your mind. And sometimes going for a run is good relaxation for the mind. Some people probably find a good little skydive. Nice relax.
Have you ever been behind the breakers surfing?
What do you mean behind the breakers?
So
Sorry, what
behind,
does
so
that
where the
mean?
waves are breaking, if you go past that, it's just swell.
Oh, okay.
They're not breaking.
yeah.
Have you ever been there, bobbing up and down around there?
No?
Very relaxing.
Yeah?
Very, very relaxing.
Humans just seem to find the sea very relaxing. Do you think that's quite a primitive thing? Because, it's not a great place for a human to be, is it? Like in terms of survival, you don't want to just be bobbing around in the sea.
But people, when they go to islands and things like that, tend to camp out on the beaches, right? Because then you're less likely to get bitten by bugs and creatures if you're near the sea.
Yeah, and I guess you got more visibility of stuff coming to attack you. But being in the sea.
I wonder why the sound of waves is so calming as well. Sometimes I listen to that if I have trouble sleeping.
It's quite like white noise. Do you agree? Have you ever just heard like
Yeah.
on like an old TV and stuff like that, or whatever it might be? Now, apparently, lorries at the moment, they go, this vehicle is turning left. This vehicle is turning left, right? The reason they don't go beep, beep, beep anymore is because the white noise is a pretty much even frequency spectrum. And so you have the high frequencies and the low frequencies all in equal proportion. And what that allows is things that are good at reflecting some frequencies and things that are bad at reflecting others, you capture everything. So it's like looking in as wide a spectrum as you can. So I wonder if there's some innate thing where humans are a little safer when this white noise is around because you can tell what it's bouncing off, like a mug or some other such thing. So that's my theory.
Definitely. I think if we're talking about the quickest way to become relaxed, you have to be in a safe place.
Did anyone research an answer for this?
I had a look-see as to what there was. And I'll be honest with you, there are lots of different suggestions. There are many websites that say, 15 or even 40 ways to quickly relax. There are so many. I won't read them all to you, obviously.
Read them all.
Read them all.
At the
Read
same
them
time.
all. I put a few in some sort of categories. So the one that is really trendy at the moment, and obviously loads of people have heard about, is mindfulness, which is being very aware of your surroundings, maybe doing that via meditation, or even just paying attention to the bubbles as you do your washing up. So studies on mindfulness have seen that it increases your brain connectivity and activation, and also thickens the frontal cortex in your brain, which is the area that regulates stress, pain, emotions, well-being, and also your attention. So the key thing that seemed to come up was refocusing your attention. So you can often get stressed and worried if you're thinking about the past, or if you're also thinking about the future. So if you're ruminating and feeling quite sad, or you're getting anxiety thinking, oh no, what's going to happen? Whereas if you are more in the present and have something that takes you there, that is what will relax you. So it could be art, it could be music, it could be sport, it could be dance, it could be petting a dog, seeing your friends, family, focusing on something else. If all of those normal things don't work for you, then there are some more like extra relaxation techniques you can do. So something called progressive muscle relaxation, which an example is maybe you contract and sort of tense your toes for 5 seconds and then very gradually release that tension, and focusing on those sensations and working sort of all around your body to do that if you're someone that has trouble relaxing. And again, breathing, I think we touched on breathing quickly. That helps your cardiovascular, that's your heart, isn't it? Your brain function, helps to reduce stress. But a lot of these
breathing does.
Yeah. So sort of like focusing on your breath.
So if you don't breathe, then that's not relaxing.
Not relaxing at all. Very stressful thing to do.
Bear that in mind.
But yeah, you can hug, unplug, check your emails less, sleep more, make new friends. have some more omega-3. That was something. Oh, something else that I found was something called mental contrasting, which I'd never heard of before, where there's this acronym, is acronym the right word? Called WHOOP, where instead of just having wishful thinking where you're like, oh, it'd be so nice if I lived in a big house and had loads of fish, you thought of your wish, you thought of the outcome, so that's the W and then the O. You then think of an obstacle, this is the second O, and then you think of a P, a plan to overcome that obstacle. There's been a study as well. Maybe this is more to do with relaxation at work and maybe not in your general life, but for every sort of 1.5 to 2 hours that you're doing something that is intensive, you should have 20 minutes of relaxation. And it should be some sort of like active relaxation. So maybe you're drawing something, or you're sat and you're imagining yourself on a beach, but you don't just imagine the beach, you imagine the sand between your toes, and you really visualize yourself being there. But that is meant to help reset you so you can then have a nice day. But yeah, dogs, alone time, holiday, kissing. Kissing is more effective than holding hands.
I believe you haven't written kissing though, have you, Josie? You've written the word snogging.
Yeah, the article that I read said make out session. I was like, come on, we know what that means.
Yes.
Sophie, have you got a question for us?
In a spaceship that can support a maximum of 4 human lives, but can go at any speed, is it possible to get a healthy human to a planet 500 light years away?
Wait, please say that again.
So we've got a spaceship and it can support a maximum of 4 human lives and it can go at any speed. Is it possible to get a healthy human to a planet that's 500 light years away?
Okay, so maybe you start with 2 humans, like a lad and a lass.
Yeah.
And they pop out a couple of young'uns. Oh, this is going to get nasty,
so
isn't
they could
it?
start
But
with
you can only. But you can only support.
It's going to get
4.
real nasty.
But if you can only support
4.
so you've got enough like food or air or whatever, it's just for 4 human lives.
So you basically have to have a boy and a girl.
Or you get even shadier and you have 1 child and then you mix up with the parents instead of brother and sister.
Okay, so
because then you can get another extra generation, because if you only got 4, if you then have the next 2.
If you can't have 2 while you've still got 3 there.
Or you could just take a stock of, for a bit of in vitro, take a stock of sperm on the flight, knock it in.
Wait, so sorry,
that would be packed as standard, wouldn't it?
Wait, so sorry, can I ask? So the spaceship, it's not 4 lives in total, it's 4 lives at any one time.
4 lives at any one
Any
time.
one
I think,
time, yeah.
So okay,
Yeah.
so the food is somehow infinite, or they can plant it, or whatever, so that if one dies and you're like, hey, another one's born, you can have many human lifetimes, but only 4 living at any one present moment. Okay.
Yeah, I guess mechanically what's going to happen is you're going to have, a male and a female. They're going to have kids. Most likely, they'll have to keep, unfortunately, getting rid of them until it's a male and a female, maybe. And then they'll die, and then that male and female have another generation. So I'm wondering, this is a long way away, 500 light years. The distance that it takes light to travel in distance that light can travel in 500 years. So what's going to happen? Like, would they be healthy? Would they be healthy humans?
Surely with all that incest, you would start having a lot of issues, right?
But how long would it take to start having issues with the incest?
Yeah. Do you know, Sophie? I thought you might.
I don't know kind of generational numbers. I think obviously, when you have an incestuous relationship, it's between animals. When exactly? When, it's on the bucket list. Please don't. That's not true. That's not true. Oh, please, I have 2 siblings. I don't want them to listen to this.
That is spicy.
They're adopted though, so it's less weird. Anyway, that wouldn't happen. Please don't put any of this in. Don't put any of this in. Mum, I've got this new podcast. I'm so proud of it. Get out. Get out. Yeah, obviously, like you're reducing the genetic pool, and so you're much more likely to end up with, like, if someone had a genetic mutation that meant they were more susceptible to a disease, well, that's more likely to run in the family. So if you then breed that family together, it's more likely to pass along and become worse and worse, essentially. So, but I don't know how rapidly that would develop, But I'm guessing what I'm thinking about is the 500 light years thing. And we've got a spaceship that can go at any speed. So what about, could we find a way to protect the humans if it was traveling really fast? Like, what's the fastest a human can travel in a vehicle without...
Like, what's the biggest G-force you can...
Yeah.
But you could never get to the speed of light, because that's just physically impossible.
But the question said the spaceship can travel at any speed.
Ooh.
Is this within the realms of physical possibilities, or is it a node?
Yeah, let's get in the realms. Should we
Okay,
get in the realms?
it's better to
Get
stay in the
inside.
realms.
What's the fastest that a spaceship can go at the moment, Josie?
Probably pretty fast.
Great answer.
Nice and precise,
Science
just
with Josie
as
Peters,
scientists
science with
like
Josie
it,
Peters.
vague as possible.
Well, I know that when the Apollo astronauts travelled to the moon, they were travelling at speeds that were a bit faster than 24,000 miles an hour. And the Juno spacecraft that went to Jupiter managed to reach speeds of 165,000 miles an hour. But that was because of the gravitational pull of Jupiter causing it to reach those kinds of speeds. But it's pretty speedy.
It depends. Does this futuristic spaceship have a futuristic fuel source? I don't know. What's the fastest thing?
We've got this. NASA are planning on a mission to Alpha Centauri. Is that the closest star system, right? To us. So they've got a mission planned within the next couple of decades, I think, where they're going to launch a craft that will be able to travel at something like quarter of the speed of light, I think it'll get up to, or something like that.
Is that something that is shaped like a little credit card and is called a light sail?
Yeah, so you use a light sail to get the
Yeah.
acceleration. Yeah, so
you have like a little laser on the Earth, and then you bling, point it at the credit card size spacecraft, and then it accelerates just from the photons.
Oh, is that how they do it? I
You don't
thought
use
they
the
used
sun
the
or
sun.
something?
Yeah.
So you can do that as well, but you want to get your initial boost like quite pointed and directed, and then you can then use other stars to keep it
fantastic.
going.
Cool.
So yeah, there's a cool way that I can't remember exactly how long you would have to wait, but someone did a nice like theoretical paper on this, where if you wanted to go past to get a nice picture, I think you had to wait for an alignment of all the 3 sort of planets and the star and stuff in the system to line up.
In Alpha Centauri.
Something like that, yes. And then, but I think that would take another 100 years for that to happen. But something to do with, the light directing and also the gravity and stuff like that. But yeah, you would get this initial boost from a laser on the Earth going, bye.
Because I guess when the ship gets there, I think it'll take like 30 years to get there or something once they start the mission. So we might not even be alive by the time it arrives, which would be a shame. But then it'll take like how long for the information to get back? Like a year or something. I don't know how far away it is.
4 light years is the closest star to us. So 4 years for that information to come back. Yeah. But the problem would be that it would be sailing past it. What you want to do is try and stick around so that you can pick up more information.
But
it can't slow itself down.
No, so you would have to use exactly like the physics of the system to be able to try and direct it to where you want it to be. So I think it was this 100 years or so before everything's lined up, and that did something nice with the calculations of getting it to slow down properly or speed it up when you needed it.
I was wondering if you could turn the solar sail around to point towards the star system that you're approaching in order to slow down. Could you do that?
I think the thing is that you want to make, in order to get it there as fast as possible, you need to make it as light as possible.
Yeah.
And so
you this is one of the things do that.
Yeah, the mechanics to do that would be a lot.
Heavy stuff. Just for anyone listening who doesn't know about this stuff, basically, the amazing thing is that light can transfer momentum. So you can use light to power a sail, just like we use, if it's in space, just in the same way that we use wind to push a ship along on the planet Earth.
And even it happens to asteroids in our solar system. They get gradually turned around. It's called the Yarkovsky effect. So photons from the sun gradually push asteroids around, and sometimes they get dislodged, but it takes a very long time.
Wow. That's
really
super cool.
How are we going to convince how are we going to convince them to mate?
I mean, it'll be a necessity, won't it? It's not a nice situation to be in.
It's not, is it?
But it's
got to happen.
I like the bit of this question where we focus more on the physics and less on the biology.
Has anyone actually found an answer to my question?
Yeah, so I put together a little bit of an answer for what might happen. So obviously the biology is pretty bleak, isn't it, with all the incest that would have to go on. But I thought a little bit about embryology in space because obviously that's really interesting. That thing, I think maybe I mentioned it before on another podcast actually, about how, if you have worms, flatworms, and you breed them in space, then their biology is completely messed up, and like they will often sort of grow two heads and things like that. And you can bring them back to planet Earth, and their situation doesn't improve. So any embryo that develops in kind of an anti-gravity situation, we don't know what would happen to a human embryo yet, but it could be pretty weird. So that could be worrying, but maybe there'd be like a gravitational system on the ship, which would be nice. But yes, obviously there's the ethics of repeatedly breeding, which is problematic, and the genetics, and having to get a male and female child. We already talked about this. It'd be pretty nasty. But the cool thing is that if the spaceship can go at any speed, then if it's going close to the speed of light, then relativistic time dilation means that it might not actually take 500 years to get there, even though it's 500 light years away from the point of view of the people inside the spaceship. So like theoretically, if you were able to travel at the speed of light, then you could arrive at any point in the universe without any time having elapsed. And obviously from the perspective of someone looking from the outside, they would think that it would take you a very long time to get there, even if they can see you traveling away at the speed of light, which saying see you can travel someone away at the speed of light, that's even more complicated because of... Anyway, it gets complicated. But basically the point is that if you're going extremely fast, then time distorts such that you don't experience as much of it. So if you're going at like 99.9999999% the speed of light, then you might just arrive in like 10 minutes. And you don't have to worry about any of the ethics of it.
Huzzah.
I love it when you don't have to worry about ethics.
And we have arrived at the end. Points have been allocated by Sam Lee according to a system that none of us understands. Sam, what's the verdict?
Well, this week's standout winner is... I left my scoring system at home today. Let's just call it a draw.
Thanks to Josie Peters.
Thanks very much.
Sophie Ward.
Thank you.
James
Why
Wells.
would you say thank you?
James Wells.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And Matthew Shrubman, that's me. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Our producer, Sam Lee, and to Unbound for their generosity in hosting and supporting us. You can follow us on social media by searching A Piece of String or String Podcast.
If you'd like to learn a little bit more about astrophysics and astronomy, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Josie A. Peters.
And if you want to watch me goofing around and talking about science, check out my Twitter and YouTube at Soph's Notes.
And you can learn about all kinds of different scientific curiosities by following me on social media by searching Science in the Bath or Matthew Shribman.
If you have a quirky question of your own that you'd like a scientific answer for, then please reach out to us on any of our social media channels.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back in a fortnight, and as usual, let's never speak of any of this ever again.